What's up YouTube? This is Alan Bingham, aka Sax-bit, and if you're one of my Yu-Gi-Oh video only viewers, this is probably the first time you've ever heard my voice, so hopefully it is nice and soothing for you. Anyway, I've been wanting to do a deck profile video for a while, and honestly, my deck has been changing a lot this format. And of course, you know, a TCG player takes a long time to get cards in and stuff, and so I've had to push this back further and further and further. But I finally got everything that I need, and you know, at least for the time being. So I wanted to go ahead and do a deck profile on my current deck build. So anyway, we'll go ahead and start with the main deck. Okay, first of all, we've got a couple of one-ofs. These are, I mean, basically, you know, one Inspector Border, one Thunder King Ryo. They are both, you know, they're floodgates, but they're not technically anti-special summon floodgates. Thunder King can negate a special summon, but he's not a floodgate for special summoning. But anyway, though, it's nice to have a couple of floodgates that are decent beaters, because cards like Fossil Dyna and Barrier Statues and everything are so small, and you're not always going to have a Moon Mirror Shield or a Clockwork Knight. So it's nice having both of these. But I only do just one-ofs, and you know, we'll get to some more one-ofs in a little bit. And of course, the golden standard in Stun, 3 Fossil Dynas. You know, not much to say there. Just, you know, the biggest anti-special summon monster in the game, period. Now, a lot of people are going 3 Barrier Statues as a replacement to Jowgen. R.I.P. Jowgen, by the way. But I'm honestly not a big fan of Barrier Statues in general. In fact, I wasn't running any this format after Jowgen got banned at first, but then I was like, well, I gotta at least run one. And arguably, the water statue is probably the best, but just a word to the wise, if you guys are running 3 barrier statues, I highly suggest running 1 water, 1 earth, and 1 fire, rather than putting all your eggs in one basket. Because decks like Kriston are on the rise. Atlantean Mermail had some representation over at in the top 64 at YCS Orlando. Just things like that. So you don't want to put all your eggs in the basket for this, but then, you know, if you run 3 of the Earth statue, all of a sudden you're just going to run to nothing but Fenrir and Mimighoul or something like that. And the fire statue arguably isn't really that bad, even though Ryze will run some fire monsters, because the most that they can make from their extra deck is going to be a duo drive. And duo drive, you can just, you know, use Crackdown on it. You can pop it with Dogmatic Punishment, whatever. So honestly, I highly suggest running a variety. And then of course, if you get any 2 barrier statues out, you basically have covered all the bases. But once again, for me, I'm only running 1 barrier statue, period, so I'm just running the water. And there's actually an alternative purpose for me running the water that I'll get to shortly. Now, I have always loved Hand Disruption. And when Yata-Poly came off of the ban list, I was like, okay, this could actually be pretty fun in Stun. And it's actually, it's not really a gimmick. Like, is it like a genuine, like, alternative win condition? If you can get an uncontested Fossil Dyna or Barrier Statue out with, say, a Moon Mirror Shield or boosted by Clockwork Knight or something, and then you drop a Yata-Poly, if they don't have an automatic answer for it at that point in time, then you have a Yata locked them and you've won the game. As far as Don Zalug goes, I'll admit, he's more of a gimmick. He's more for fun. He's a card I've always enjoyed. In 2025, make no mistake, he is not exactly the world's best tech, but, you know, I like to be a little bit more unique, so I run him. Okay, so that's it for the monsters. That's it. And if you were counting along with us, that was 9 monsters. But anyway, so now for the draw spells. You got Card of Demise, obviously, Pot of Prosperity, 3 copies of Pot of Duality. And then I am one of those people that actually likes Time Tearing Morganite. I know not everybody likes Morganite, and I know it is technically a -1 if you play it right off the get. But let me tell you, if you can survive that initial little hump after playing it, man, this card will keep you in the long game. It will absolutely keep you in the long game. I cannot tell you the number of times that thing has bailed me out throughout the course of a duel. So I highly recommend Time Tearing Morganite at 2. So you have a decent probability of drawing it, but you're also, not going to get clogged with it. Okay, as far as boosting my monsters, to Moon Mirror Shield, it's great going first or going second, although it is weak against things like Book of Moon or Book of Eclipse, so that's kind of unfortunate. But the alternative, this is a much better going first card, is Clockwork Knight. 2 of these. Now, this is good for going first or going second. This is primarily just good going first. But this can be more devastating if you're going first. Not only does it have that mass, essentially field effect of boosting all your monsters and weakening all their monsters, but since it turns every monster on the field into a machine, it actually acts as kind of a form of disruption, especially for things like trying to get out Fiendsmith's sequence, because you got to have 2 fiends to make that card. So it is a pseudo floodgate. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's as strong of a floodgate as a lot of the other stuff that we stun players run, but it does work as a pseudo floodgate, and I highly recommend it. 2 copies of Decisive Battle of Belganda. I do not run the full Dogmatica package, as you can tell. I don't run Ecclesia, I don't run Nadir or anything like that. Not because I think they're bad cards, I think they're amazing cards, but I just want to be different. That's really all it is. But I still run this with a couple of copies of Mirror Jade in my extra deck, just to have some extra protection. I'm not running Titaniclad or anything, because, there's no point in running Titaniclad if I'm not running Ecclesia. But it serves its purpose. Once again, just a couple of targets, just the 2 Mirror Jade, but that's enough to help protect me a couple of turns before I can start getting my board in order. So I really like it as is. 2 copies of Necro Valley. That's pretty standard. At one point in time, I was actually running 3, but my hand just kept getting clogged with it, and you don't always need the Necro Valley if you have other stuff. But Necro Valley is very good. Highly recommended it too. Now, my deck is, I've lovingly referred to it as Yata-Poly Stun. Of course, you saw the 2 copies of Yata-Garasu. Well, here's the 3 copies of Super Poly. I absolutely love Super Polymerization. It is a great going first card. It's a great going second card. It can be very disruptive. It can't be responded to by anything. So I absolutely love it. And since I'm only running 4 anti-special summon Floodgate monsters. So if I have something like Inspector Boarder or Thunder King, or if I actually have a Don Zalug on the field or something like that, then I can activate this. And actually, I was telling you about how I have an alternative reason for wanting to run the Water Barrier statue. I can make Mud Dragon of the Swamp when the Water Barrier statue is out, because Mud Dragon of the Swamp is a water monster. So if you need to get rid of their field, but in the process of getting rid of their field, they're going to have some effects trigger in the graveyard and be able to special summon some stuff, it's kind of nice being able to summon my Water Barrier statue, then Super Poly away their stuff. And then all of a sudden their graveyard effects that would special summon things are not going to trigger. So it's actually pretty cool. But I love Super Polymerization. Okay, a couple of random one-of techs. Forbidden Droplet, I was never a big fan of until recently. But I feel like, honestly, in today's meta, it's really good. Even though we as stun players don't get very much benefit off of discarding. It's just such a flexible card. It's an incredibly flexible card. It can really help you deal with Detonator if you're playing against Ryziel. It can help you deal with the various Link monster threats and Malice, especially the stupid Queen. So it is excellent. As for the random compulse, this is really mainly for Detonator. I mean, of course, it's going to pop any kind of extra deck monster that doesn't have protection from targeting. But specifically, my big reasoning for doing it this format was Detonator. And, I was also doing Storming Mirror Force for a little while, but the chainability of this is just so much better. So even though you can get a mass board wipe against Ryzeal if you use Storming Mirror Force, this just ends up being a little bit more consistent. But yeah, just random one-ofs for each of these. Now for my Floodgate traps, I think basically everybody's running these two as far as our stun community goes. But lose one turn, I gotta say this card is clutch as all get out. In fact, before I put that water barrier statue in, I was running 2 of these. My monster count was at 8 instead. And I really do like it, especially if I have this plus like super polymerization or dogmatic punishment or something like that. So their stuff shifts to defense, their effects aren't going off, and then I can just wipe their field with, once again, dogmatic punishment or super polymerization. So it's I cannot say enough good things about this card. It is absolutely amazing. And of course, another gold standard, 3 dogmatic punishment. Not much to say about that. It is what it is. It's one of the best traps that we run, if not the best. 2 copies of Solemn Strike, which is absolutely killer this format, especially against Ryzeal once again. And then the other gold standard, 3 Solemn Judgment. Now in the side deck, I'll be real with you, my side deck is basically cookie cutter from the El Yugi Pibe side deck, with the exception of the fact that he main decks evenly matched and I don't. But literally the other 12 cards are exactly what he runs, and which is really what a lot of our community runs. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do for this particular format. So 1 Feather Duster, 2 Lightning Storms, so kill all spells and traps, flexibility with killing monsters and spell and traps. Triple Raigeki, absolutely the best artwork, by the way, and I'm really jealous of the OCG because they have this in a quarter century rare and we only have a prismatic secret. So hopefully this will get re-released in a QCR at some point. 3 Ultimate Slayer. Not only is this completely deadly against Ryzeal, but also honestly against Malice. There are several links that are just a pain in the butt to deal with Malice decks. Once again, the Queen, but then also that new link monster whose name escapes me right now, that can discard a card as a quick effect to pop a card on the field, or it can banish itself to special summon a dark or light monster from the grave. Getting around those quick effects with this, it really, really helps. So, but of course, this is biggest against Ryzeal for sure. And as I mentioned, I do not main evenly matched. I've never been a fan of evenly matched in the main because if you do win the die roll, it feels like such a dead card to open with it. But I will side deck this card all day long. It is absolutely fantastic. And then the big time Malice killer, also the Bestial killer for any deck that randomly runs Bestial. And of course, stopping evenly matched, stopping Cosmic Cyclone, etc., etc. This should be at 3, this format, in every single stun player's side deck, period. Alright, finally, let's go on to the extra deck. Okay, this is a gold standard, except it's usually a gold standard at 3, but I have so many things to accommodate for in my extra deck that my space is a little tight, so I actually had to cut this down to 2. But of course, Intus allows you to pop something on the field, so Dogmatic Punishment becomes a 2-for-1. Same deal with something like Ultimate Slayer. So yeah, it's a pretty amazing card. Garura at 2. A lot of stun decks actually do this at 1, but the reason I do it at 2 is because he is versatile for me. Not only is he, useful for Dogmatic Punishment or Ultimate Slayer, he's also useful for Super Polymerization. He's honestly one of the best targets I have for Super Polymerization, so I got to run at least a couple. Honestly, I would love to run him at 3 as well, but unfortunately, once again, don't have the space. Now we got 3 purely Super Poly targets. So Mud Dragon, which is kind of the alternative to Garura. Garura is two of the same attribute and the same type but different names. This is the same attribute but different types. Then Predaplant Dragostopelia, which arguably this format I could potentially cut, but I do occasionally run into situations where my opponent has a fusion and a dark monster on the field. So and his effect is great, being able to as a quick effect put a predator counter and on a monster, and any monster with a predator counter has its effect negated. That's incredibly useful. So I still keep him in there anyway, just at 1. This guy is the other Malice killer. Oh my goodness. You can, with a super polymerization, you can eat up a field of Malice monsters. And the great thing is sometimes you can bait out some of their stuff, some of their traps, so maybe enter battle phase. And then when you enter battle phase, they think that you have an evenly matched, which you may or you may not. But you'll get them to start triggering some of their traps and start special summoning stuff and blah, blah, blah. And then you can interrupt that stuff at any old time that you want to. And super polymerization, make a nice little 3,000 beater. And this guy is basically a Thunder King. As far as negating inherent special summons, it's basically a Thunder King that you don't have to tribute. So yeah, I really, really like this guy. Also, shout out to Leandro. Gosh, I cannot pronounce his last name, but El Yugi Pibe, shout out to him because he's actually the one that suggested this. I was running Starving Venom Dragon, but this has been a much, much, much better choice. So thank you very much for that, Leandro. And then, like I mentioned before, for Golgonda, these are my only 2 targets, period, is just enough to get me by. I actually used to run 3 of them, but I will show you what I replaced them with in just a minute. Okay, both of these are both for Dogmatic Punishment and Ultimate Slayer. This used to be 2 copies of Malong, but I actually really like this format. It's a good way to more permanently get rid of really nasty cards like Queen Cryptor in Malice or Detonator in Ryziel, because we're playing in a post Snake Eyes format. Nobody's messing with Snake Eyes anymore, so it is a-okay to put nasty cards in the back row. And it's honestly kind of preferable. Now, it does kind of suck to have to discard for his effect, but I gotta tell you, like earlier today, I used Dogmatica Punishment on some Malice monster. I can't remember what it was. I already had Imperial Iron Wall active, so Malice was mostly shut down, but Queen Cryptor was already at 5,000 attack, so she was huge. And so I activated Dogmatica Punishment on something. I can't remember what it was, but then I sent this for the cost, or sent this for the effect, I should say, and I put that queen in the back row. So, if I had used this, then she would have been able to be resummoned or something through one of their stupid traps or whatever. And then the same deal with Ryziel. Like, you can send a Ryziel Detonator back to the extra deck, but they can turbo through their deck so easily and bring things back out of the extra deck if you aren't able to establish a strong enough board after breaking the board. So this kind of helps deal with at least one of those copies, because if you put one of their detonators in the back row, they're not bringing that specific copy back ever again, and they probably only have one more copy left in their extra deck. So anyway, I definitely highly suggest at least a copy of Indignister Packbet. I really, really, really love this card. Okay, for my Xyz. Technically, both of these are Ultimate Slayer targets, and of course this one's kind of a Dogmatic Punishment target, but I don't use this for Ultimate Slayer. Since this guy can recycle himself unless I have a Necro Valley on the field, this is going to be my only Xyz Ultimate Slayer target. This guy is either an Ultimate Slayer target when I've already used this and I had Necro Valley and I have no other targets, or the primary use of this is to actually make this. If you noticed, like I mentioned earlier, out of my 9 monsters, only 4 of them are anti-special summon Floodgate monsters. So the other 5 monsters like going second, a Yata-Garasu or a Donzalug can still be useful for breaking a board because I can just make this with it. So, and it's really surprising. Like, I'm not seeing enough anti-meta stun extra decks running this card. I had no idea why. I mean, I guess the biggest reason why is most builds run 3 barrier statues, 3 fossil dynas, and 2 ecclesia, and the ecclesia is the only thing that you'd be able to make this with. But on the same note, you guys usually get ecclesia pretty quickly because of Nadir Servant. So I think this needs to be a must, at least as a one of in everybody's extra deck. But anyway, so I really love that. Oh, also one thing to note too, even though against Ryziel they have that nasty field spell that basically would not allow you to bounce their detonator with it. If you, well, there's a couple of answers to that. Number one, if you are one of those people that likes to main deck evenly matched, and if you're able to evenly match their board, then you will be able to do that. You'll be able to bounce their detonator. But if not, one thing that I've done quite a bit recently is I'll make this guy and then I'll just activate Moonmere Shield on it. And at that point, like, it's not like Clockwork Knight where all of a sudden I flip the tables and their detonator is now less than 3,000 attack. This will just, like keeps the attacks all the same, but their detonator is not going to be able to attack over it. So you just kind of do that a couple times. Like, you attempt to draw some stuff out by detaching the material for effect, but then after that, you just keep attacking until he runs out of materials. So it's really good. Bucephalus, Dogmatic Punishment target, Ultimate Slayer target. Its primary focus is to get Garura into the grave and then draw a card. And he's big. He's 3,500 attack. Then Codebreaker Virus Swordsman. This is an alternative Ultimate Slayer target, even though it does not have a graveyard effect. But the main reasoning for this is if you have a couple of copies, or if you have skill drain on the field, you can still make your monsters useful because this is the largest attack generic Link 2 in the entire game. So this way you can just put a big 2,300 body on the field under skill drain and just kind of sit there with it. But anyway, I know this video is a bit long, but this is this is my deck. I love it the way that it is. It is a little bit more on the different side from what most builds go with, but I always pride myself in being unique, and I'll go ahead and say, like, this is not always consistent. Like, I do very well with this, but I don't do very well all the time with this. It can be a little bit hit or miss. The more standard Dogmatica build is a little bit more consistent, actually quite a bit more consistent. I know I've already shouted them out a couple of times, but I would definitely, if you are not already a subscriber of LUVP Bay, you definitely need to be. In fact, I will put a link to his page in the description. But I think he's probably the best deck builder in our entire community. He thinks very analytically and builds very consistently. I'm a little more wacky and fun. And so if you like wacky and fun, sure, take some pointers from my stuff. But if you want super, super competitive consistency, I would definitely check out his channel. He's got some great, great content. So anyway, that's really it. I'm just also, please like and subscribe. Please comment on the videos. I love interacting with you guys. And I have some other plans for this channel in the future, hopefully this year, not just for Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, but I want to start putting up some saxophone videos. I want to get some arrangements of video game music for me to play on sax. I will probably be doing some more video game uploads at some point in time. So anyway, that's really it. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.